Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. By now everyone's probably familiar with Hamato Xiono, a member of the New Republic Senate and a member of the Senate Defense Council. A group of legislators who have a great deal of control over the New Republic military. They even have the ability to approve the allocation of resources for specific missions. Senator Hamato Xiono is represented as one of the antagonists within the Ahsoka series as he constantly stands in the way of Hera Syndulla and her effort to uncover a secret Imperial military operation to bring Grand Admiral Thrawn back to the Star Wars galaxy. He basically disappeared in the early years of the Galactic Civil War. The introduction of Senator Xiono as a main opponent for Hera Syndulla is an interesting choice by Filoni, as he doesn't really fit your typical villain model. We might hate him as an individual, but it's basically too early to determine whether he is an evil or malicious individual. As a matter of fact, the case could be made that he's basically just doing his job here. And this is why he's an important character, in my point of view. He normalizes the audience to the reality of most government systems and the complexity of the politics that runs them. Senator Xiono is a great example of this. He's a complicated character, and to really understand his motivations, we kind of have to not only understand him, but the political system that he belongs to. Before we continue, a quick word from our sponsor for today's video, Rocket Money. Remember those days when 10 credits could get you an entire pound of premium Ewok cheeks? Remember those days when the banking claims would contact you to help you finance that YT 1300 Carillion freighter you had your eyes on? Well, those days of easy money, it's over. Prices are up and wages don't seem to be able to keep up. And so how you spend your money now is more important than ever. Rocket Money is a personal finance manager that can help you get a better understanding of your spending habits and help you plan for the future. They're best known for keeping track of your subscriptions and getting rid of any unwanted recurring charges. But did you know Rocket Money can actually help you save on your utility bills? Just upload one of your utility bills and they will actually contact your service provider for you and potentially get you a better rate and save you money. Keep in mind, if they are successful, they'll take a 40% commission off of your annual savings. I feel like this just motivates them to get you more savings. It's like a win-win situation. More than 3.4 million individuals use Rocket Money to keep their financial future on track. The app also helps you set budgets, monitor your credit score, and gives you a clear view of your entire net worth and portfolio. Like my dad used to always tell me, making money is only half of the struggle. The other half is keeping track of your spending and not letting it get out of control. So try Rocket Money today and unlock more features with premium. Follow my link in the description down below, rocketmoney.com/gentech for more details. Now, Xiono hails from the world of Hosnian Prime, most famously known for being the first and only target of Starkiller Base in 34 ABY, roughly 23 years after the events of Ahsoka Season 1. Hosnian Prime was chosen as the second capital for the New Republic, and it was a pretty good choice. It's a heavily urbanized Yoseminopolis world that sits directly on the Carillion Trade Spire. Basically, it was a good alternative to Coruscant. As a matter of fact, J.J. Abrams originally wanted Starkiller Base to destroy Coruscant, but Pablo Hidalgo and the story group were like, no, you can't do that. A lot more stories that need to be told on Coruscant. Thank God they intervened, because Coruscant is one of my favorite planets in any sci-fi franchise. And honestly, it would be the first place that I would visit if I could actually travel to the Star Wars galaxy and get myself off of that no-fly list. I swear to God, that Ewok was a comfort animal and not just food. But seriously, I'm so happy they didn't sacrifice Coruscant for what turned out to be a pretty mediocre sequel trilogy. So anyway, Hosnian Prime was a trade hub and it boasted a powerful manufacturing center. There was even a large factory complex for Surgica Corporation, which is one of the main arms manufacturers in the Star Wars galaxy. Now, a lot of core worlds like Hosnian Prime during Imperial rule experienced either little change or even benefited slightly from the uptick in manufacturing. Like the Republic Senate, the Imperial Senate's power was mostly concentrated in these core regions. And so keeping these areas insulated from the Empire's dirty little secrets and more oppressive measures was crucial to Emperor Palpatine retaining control over the galaxy. This is why the Rebellion always had a strong tie to the Outer Rim, because out there the Imperial Senate had less eyes, and so it was easier for the Empire to occupy and exploit resources. There was always a distinct difference between the Outer Rim and the core regions during the Republic era, and the Empire just took full advantage of this. And this is probably why so many Rebel heroes hail from the Outer Rim, like Luke Skywalker from Tatooine, Hera Syndulla, who's from Ryloth, and Ezra Bridger, who's from Agrabah.
Wait! We could talk.
And so Senator Xiono's core world experience during the Galactic Civil War is clearly going to be different from someone like Hera Syndulla's, and she kind of points it out here.
Were you ever in the war, Senator?
No.
Just sat back and waited to see who came out on top?
So for a little bit of context here, Hera Syndulla has every right to be upset by Senator Xiono, who has basically been attacking her during this entire meeting and claiming that she's driven by personal reasons to pursue Thrawn, which is just not really cool.
Isn't this just another attempt to gain New Republic resources to aid in what has ultimately been your personal quest to find Ezra Bridger?
But Hera Syndulla shouldn't have said this. It's an ugly move. And it highlights one of the biggest political divides in the galaxy that precedes the Empire and the Galactic Republic. It's the split between the Outer Rim and the core we just talked about. Hera comes from a family of revolutionaries, and her entire family, all of her friends, suffered greatly during the Clone Wars and also during the Galactic Civil War. Her traumatic experiences during the war shaped who she would become, and it makes it harder for her to understand people who just didn't have those same experiences. And Hamato Xiono was probably one of those individuals. It's very likely he escaped the Galactic Civil War without seeing any death or destruction. As far as we know, Hazian Prime was spared from any heavy fighting, and so most likely he never needed to join the rebellion. It's even possible that he saw the war as a threat to peace and stability. Imperial propaganda was very strong in the core worlds. And it also seems like Hamato Xiono comes from actually a very affluent family, which tells us a little bit more about him. Later on in Hamato Xiono's life, he would actually use his power and influence to secure a position in the New Republic Navy for his son, Kaz Xiono. You might recognize him from the Resistance cartoon. Such wealth makes me wonder, was he a collaborator during the Galactic Civil War? Did he benefit directly from aiding the Empire, or was he in some kind of adjacent industry? It is true that certain worlds like Vardo's experienced economic booms during their rule. At the height of the Empire, almost everyone from Han Solo's dad to Wedge Antilles worked with or for the Imperial military. You simply couldn't escape it. And I think Hera Syndulla knows a little bit more about the Senator's background, and she seems to be suggesting something here with her own line of questioning. Which honestly is an unprofessional move, not really fit for a military officer, and really just a stupid move for someone who's actively trying to get support for an operation. The mission and the men should always come first. Hera should have shelved her personal ego in this discussion where she's basically trying to get approval from Xiono. Now, it should be noted, I am making some gross generalizations about Hamato Xiono. There are plenty of affluent core world politicians and business people who helped build the Rebel Alliance, from Luthen Rael and Tay Koma to Mon Mothma and of course Bail Organa, who all risked their entire professional careers and great amounts of credits and their lives to start the rebellion.
So what do I sacrifice? Everything!
The Surgeon Council for Hazian Prime, Plaz Lelkut, was actually hiding refugees within his apartment during the war, and he would be, discovered and sent to a labor camp. So not all people from the core were cowards. And so we don't actually know what Senator Xiono did during the Galactic Civil War, and it's kind of out of line for Hera Syndulla to be questioning him like this. But then again, Senator Xiono seems very hostile to Hera Syndulla from the outset, even when she gives a pretty simple request to the Defense Council.
If I could get approval to send a task force to the Denab system, I could find out.
Why does this trigger the Senator so much? Some people have said that he's a First Order sympathizer or an Imperial Remnant sympathizer, but I have to say the timing doesn't really work here. While there are definitely Imperial spies within the New Republic, we don't really start seeing senators who openly support the Empire until, a few decades later, when you had kids growing up without any experience of what the Empire was like. Whatever his flaws might be, I think Senator Xiono probably likes the Empire no more than the next individual. To truly understand Senator Xiono, we have to understand how he thinks, and by that I mean we have to understand how a politician thinks. When you have a large decision-making body like a Senate, it's only human nature for people to organize themselves into factions and groups. This is how you expedite the political process, it's how you gather power and actually get things done. What's interesting about the early New Republic period is that Mon Mothma's presence has delayed partisan politics at the federal level. Like George Washington, who argued against the creation of political parties during his farewell address, Mon Mothma wanted the legislators to work together to create the best outcomes for the people, rather than getting into this political game of trading power and influence. But she was kind of naive to think that that would actually happen. I mean, factionalism, tribalism is in human nature. And we see Mon Mothma painfully struggling to keep neutrality as all of the other senators begin to pull in their own direction. Some people have said that Mon Mothma is a weak leader, but I choose to believe that she simply didn't want to have that much power. She wanted to set a precedent for a very weak executive branch. It's an ideological decision that mirrors her demilitarization policy. She wanted power to be concentrated at the local levels of government, and she also didn't want a strong central government, especially when it came to matters of security. And for now, she's able to contain individuals like Senator Xiono, who I suspect is a political monster. It's not to say that he's evil or even bad intentioned. I think, people who point at all politicians and say they're evil are just kind of being childish and rejecting the reality of the situation. For there to be power sharing, there also needs to be influence peddling. Politicians simply fully embrace this reality, that politics is a game that it must be played in order to place oneself in a decision-making capacity. And so they are a very necessary evil in the New Republic. Perhaps Senator Xiono has some policies he wants to push forward for his constituents, and he sees this as a high-level competition against other senators and even a high-ranking military officer. This is, after all, his mandate. A government system like the New Republic is designed to work with its people instead of suppressing their individual voices. The self-serving intent of individuals like Xiono is ultimately balanced out by other self-serving individuals. When a republic is functioning properly, you don't necessarily need to have unanimous support, peace, or unity. Instead, you have vibrant clashes on the Senate floor, ideally about policy issues in the future of the government. Anyway, so while Hera Syndulla is used to battling it out with blasters and snub fighters, Senator Xiono is constantly battling people on the Senate floor and in his committees. Hera Syndulla doesn't realize that the moment she walks through that door, she's at war. And so when Hera Syndulla and Mon Mothma exchange niceties.
You look well. How's young Jason?
Fine, Chancellor. In fact, he's on board. Somewhere.
Causing trouble with Chopper, no doubt.
Most likely.
Look at how Xiono acts.
Forgive me, Madam Chancellor, but if we could just hear the General's report. We're late as it is.
Quite right, Senator Xiono.
Yeah, he's being a dick. But he's also a senator who is worried about the personal connection that this military officer has with the Chancellor. Xiono knows about Hera's war record, about how she personally saved Mon Mothma from the grips of the Empire when she was forced to flee her job in the Imperial Senate. I have no doubt that Senator Xiono sees Hera Syndulla as a war hero, but he also probably views Hera Syndulla as just a general and not someone who should wield political power. And so he sees Hera Syndulla as a threat not just to the New Republic, but his own power. And this is why I always say empathy is one of the most powerful tools an individual can have. When encountering any type of situation, learn as much as you can about the other individual and try to put yourself in their shoes, because once you figure out what their mindset is, you'll be able to better deal with them. In the case here, Hera Syndulla is just completely bothered by this legislator who didn't even serve in the war. Yes, he was rude to her without any provocation, but Hera Syndulla has to be more aware of her situation and her role as a general. She needs to understand, more importantly, that he sees Hera as a threat, and so his strategy is to make Hera Syndulla seem far too emotionally connected to this operation she's trying to start. And Hera falls directly into that trap. Instead of rationally defending her mission and its objectives, she just starts talking about her personal experiences, which really doesn't work out good.
Thrawn is not your typical Imperial officer. I know because I fought against him. He killed friends, people who were like family to me. I've spent most of my life fighting a war, and that's why I'm trying to convince you to help me prevent another one.
And Senator Xiono basically sees this and he goes for the kill.
Grand Admiral Thrawn is dead. And I'm sorry to say, it is my opinion that your friend Ezra Bridger heroically died with him.
You don't know that.
General. Hera. Allow me a moment to speak with my colleagues.
Senator Xiono is a despicable person for pushing Hera Syndulla like that. But from his point of view, this is exactly why a civilian like him is placed on the Defense Council. This is why Mon Mothma, despite having a lot of affection for Hera Syndulla, allows this conversation to play out. The New Republic has civilian control over its military, and for good reason. After suffering through the military dictatorship that was the Empire, the New Republic sought to balance the power of the military elite with civilian oversight committees, like the Defense Council. The idea is the military force should focus on improving its abilities and being prepared for whatever challenges they might face. But it really should be up to the people whether a country goes to war or not. This removes a conflict of interest from military leaders and creates that balance and opposition that is key to a republic's success. The new republic, like the United States, was founded by individuals who were fundamentally distrustful of having a standing army in the first place. Alexander Hamilton talked about the dangers a standing army could have on the civilian populace and also expressed concerns about the financial expenses that would be necessary to fund such a military force. James Madison was once quoted saying that the means of defense against foreign danger have been always the instrument of tyranny at home. And Samuel Adams wrote in 1768, even when there is a necessity of the military power within a land, a wise and prudent people will always have a watchful and jealous eye over it. And so in many ways, despite how over the top and cringy the New Republic might seem, it does remind me of the early United States. Like the US, the New Republic is left after a war with an oversized military force. And the fact that it's still hanging around makes a lot of these senators nervous. Remember, for them, the war is completely over.
Was leading a coordinated effort by the Imperial Remnant.
Objection! Imperial Remnant. Such a sensational term.
We have former Imperials working throughout every level of the New Republic government, and they have all taken an oath of loyalty.
Long live the Empire doesn't sound like the kind of loyalty we're looking for.
Perhaps they're uncomfortable with the idea that another war could engulf the galaxy, or maybe they're just after all of that military funding which they want to divert to civilian projects. And so the idea of Imperial goons hiding in the shadows sounds proof, threatens their ability to get the type of policies they want. So Hera Syndulla is right with her assessment here. Thrawn is trying to return to the galaxy. And her greatest failure is just her lack of proof. The Imperial Remnant has done a great job at hiding its true strength in numbers. And these senators are wary of her intentions, especially after she launches a personal attack against Xiono. Only Leia really trusts Hera, and that is because of their shared experience on the battlefield. But the argument is the New Republic is a functioning political system, and it really shouldn't depend on favors from friends or previous acquaintances. As much as the audience would like to see the old gang get back together, Leia, Mon Mothma, and Hera Syndulla, as much as we want to see them have complete executive control over the military, it would set a really dangerous precedent. Without any checks and balances, they would have unlimited power. Too often do people in republics get wooed by this idea of a benevolent dictatorship that could cut through all the nasty bureaucracy. But the truth is, governance cannot depend on benevolence. It can't depend on an individual being able to regulate their own ego. No human is above the corruption that ultimate power brings, no matter what they say. As always, preservation of the system, of the checks and balances are what's important, and that's kind of what Senator Xiono is trying to do here.
I'll tell you what I see. I see a general who abuses her authority for personal gain, and I will not stand for it.
And so I find this entire sequence very interesting. It's a very complicated situation in which neither side are really correct or wrong in their handling of the situation. Ultimately, it's a failure to communicate and a clash of egos that, makes the New Republic completely unprepared for the challenge that Thrawn will one day be. Well, there's no real enemy that can defeat a well-equipped democracy. Internal divisions and excessive amounts of political maneuvering can definitely weaken its defenses. Senator Xiono would continue his political career within the New Republic, and when his own son joined the Resistance, it was known that he viewed the organization as a group of extremists. Basically, he wouldn't really change much 20 years later. After his home world of Hazian Prime was destroyed, Senator Xiono would go back into hiding. And most likely, once all the fighting stops, he'll probably come out of hiding and become a politician once again. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy,